For decades, American workers, farmers, ranchers, manufacturers, and innovators have been hurt by the unfair trade with China. Politicians ran for office promising action to remedy these practices, only to do nothing but allow them to continue. Unlike those who came before me, I kept my promise. In June of 2016, in the great state of Pennsylvania, I promised that I would use every lawful presidential power to protect Americans from unfair trade and unfair trade practices. With this signing, we mark more than just an agreement, we mark a sea change in international trade. The agreement tears down major market barriers for U.S. food and agricultural export. Millions of workers and farmers and innovators have waited decades for this day. At long last, Americans have a government that puts them first.
Well, that's the official short video announcement from the White House Twitter feed. Donald Trump declaring victory in his Phase 1 trade deal with China. It was tough talk with the Chinese delegate right next to him. It looked pretty strong, especially in contrast to the other presidents who were featured in that short video. But was it as strong as Trump has suggested, as strong as he had promised in his really 3-year trade war against China? Well, there's only one man I trust on this subject, and I am delighted that he joins us now via Skype. I'm talking about our friend, Gordon Chang, who writes for the Daily Beast, and I follow him closely on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang. And if you want to know anything about China, you should too. Gordon, great to see you again. Thanks for fitting us into your schedule.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Ezra, and I'm delighted.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I love it when you say that, because we love following the story of China. And I like the fact that Trump has been tougher on China than any president in recent history. I want to know from you, because I know you'll give us the straight goods, did he compromise too much? Are there positives and negatives in this deal? Take us through it.
Yeah, well, there are positives and negatives, and I think Trump could have gotten a better deal. I think if we step back for a moment, the president is right that his predecessors just sort of let this whole problem slide. They took actions that sometimes really helped China much more than the United States. So this is a welcome departure. The primary feature of this deal, Ezra, is essentially China agreeing to buy $200 billion more of U.S. goods and services over a 2017 baseline. This is no longer free trade. This is managed trade. Mm-hmm. And a lot of free traders are upset at this, but we got to remember that Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, is increasingly determining economic outcomes in China. He's moving away from a system and more towards a command economy. So I think the only way you can have really satisfactory trade relations with China is managed trade. So I applaud the president for making that important switch.
Now, if I understand the news reports correctly, China will buy U.S. agricultural products as well as U.S. natural gas, which will be sent there through those LNG tankers, the liquefied natural gas. Those are some pretty big exports, and that's competing in the case of LNG actually against Russia, which signed a big deal with China a while back. So I guess that's good news for those two industries. Are there industries that maybe are feeling that they didn't get the deal they were hoping for?
Well, you look at this deal line by line, and there are going to be some industries that didn't do as well as they had lobbied for. And the point here, Ezra, is that we're moving to a very different world, which is not as good as the one that we're coming from. And countries like Canada, for instance, can raise a legitimate question. Look, if you've got managed trade with China, why can't we do it? Mm-hmm. And we got to remember that under the World Trade Organization's non-discrimination rule, China can't offer a side deal of this sort to the United States. It has to offer it to the other 161 WTO members, including, of course, Canada. So this is going to be a very contentious period going forward, because other countries are going to say, what about me?
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show, which is a show I do every day. I do a monologue, interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at premium.rebelnews.com.